Behind the Lines. I'm Diane Dayton, and it is my pleasure once again to welcome back somebody that you may recognize from being on our show, Jenna Martorana. Thank you for being here, Jenna.
Thank you for having me again.
Yeah, it's great to see you. I mean, you're an author, you're a school counselor, but you also currently have the title of Miss Pennsylvania Collegiate USA.
Yes.
That's great.
Yes, it's super exciting. I have a little bit less than a month left, so it's been a wonderful year of service.
Yeah. So let's talk about a little bit about your background too, so that people know where we're picking up from, and we can continue the story of Jenna Martorana and the wonderful things that you're doing. So the first book that you wrote was this one.
That one,
It's Pearl's Purpose.
Yep.
Right. Okay.
Yes, so Pearl's Purpose was the story of how one little girl learned it's okay to not be okay. Pearl starts out as a happy-go-lucky little girl who loves to smile and laugh, but then she realizes she doesn't feel like herself anymore, and she's now hanging out with her friends, doesn't enjoy the things she once did. But luckily her teacher notices this change in Pearl and reaches out to the school counselor, who talks to her about how lots of kids all over the world feel this way, so you're not alone. There's things that we can do to help you feel better, and they talk about different coping strategies they can use. And Ms. Hope explains to her that it's okay to not be okay. And Pearl decides that it's going to be her purpose to spread that message with others. So Pearl's story is a little bit reflective of my own story of struggling with mental health and realizing that I wanted to use my story to make a difference in the lives of people, especially in children who are struggling with their mental health.
And I think that's great because there's a lot more resources for adults and, you know, even older, younger children. But this is definitely for what age group, Jenna?
I would say definitely elementary age, but it's something that I believe anybody can resonate with. I wanted to create both of these books as tools for teachers, counselors, parents, guardians to be able to open up that conversation about mental health with kids at a young age, because unfortunately, the average time frame when a child has the onset of symptoms of a mental health condition and them getting help is 8 to 10 years. So if kids are equipped with the skills to talk about it and to question things at a younger age, they're able to get the help that they need sooner, and they're not struggling in silence.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. So this was the first book. And what year was this one written in?
So I published that one in April of 2022.
Okay. And this new book that you have out is Pearl's Person. So tell us how this one came about.
Yes, so Pearl's Person I published in September of 2023. As soon as I put out my first book, one of my counselor professors at Kutztown had asked me if I would consider doing a book on grief. And at that point I was like, oh, well, we'll see how Pearl's Purpose does. But being in schools and working with kids, I saw that grief was a topic that affected so many kids. But unfortunately, it's not something that's talked about until you are in the midst of handling a loss, whether that be the loss of a person or an experience or an animal. And a lot of times the adults in that child's life are dealing with their own grief, and they're not able to handle a child's feelings. And so I wanted to create a tool that, again, adults could use to start that conversation before the child experiences a loss, because let's be real, it will happen. And so that was the goal behind Pearl's Person. So it's about Pearl losing her person, her grandmother, and how she handles that journey and learns about grief with Ms. Hope again. And I talk about ways that you can honor that loved one, ways that you can handle it. And of course, the fact that grief is not a linear journey. There will be ups, there will be downs. And it's just about making sure that you understand that it's okay to feel whatever it is that you're feeling. It's okay to grieve in the way that you need to grieve.
So how did you personally go about writing this? Because when you're writing something like this, it is really near and dear to your heart, and you got to go pretty deep, I would imagine.
Yeah. I mean, I just thought about the kids that I was working with last year. I started school counseling in April of last year, and the kids that I worked with last year, and the ones that I've worked with this school year, and just looking about their experiences and seeing how they handled things or how they weren't able to. And I think about my education being a school counselor, how we talk to kids about grief. So I was able to pull on my own experiences as a counselor as well as my professional experience and my education.
Yeah. So you are a school counselor right now.
Yes.
And this is such a perfect place for you, isn't it?
Yeah, I love it. I remember going in and being like, oh, I don't know if this is something I can do. Like, I'm not sure, imposter syndrome. But I remember sitting at my desk one day and realized I was so worried about whether I could do the job as a school counselor. I didn't realize that I was doing it. And seeing the way that my students react to me just kind of reminds me that this is exactly where I'm meant to be. I always say that I think all the experiences that I went through, my mental health struggles, my suicide attempts, all of that led me to be where I am today so that I can help kids going through the same things that I went through.
Yeah. So you've got that elementary group. So is that first and third grade?
Yep, I'm a counselor for first and third graders right now.
So you're kind of working with 6 and 8-year-olds
Yep.
or something like that? Wow.
Yeah, that's quite the group.
It is quite the group. So I would imagine, I'm trying to even understand how you approach, because you've got to go back and think also about how these children are processing.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, luckily the ones that I've had to deal with grief have been a little bit in the older category, so they are able to kind of make more sense of things. But for the younger ones, it's really about focusing on what is their reality. So I know a lot of times with parents, they think something happens with their kid and it shouldn't be that big of a deal. But you have to think about where their brain is developmentally. And their brain can't differentiate between something that we see as something small, but something that is huge to them. So a lot of times I've had teachers question, like, when a student loses a pet and it's devastating for them. Now, for me, it'd be devastating too, but for some adults, they're like, okay, like, yeah, that meant a lot to you, but it's not like it was a person. But to them, it's the same exact thing. And grief was a topic that came up a lot during the pandemic. And so something that I wanted to stress in my book is that it's not about a person or an animal dying. It could be about the loss of an experience. We saw people grieving, not being able to have graduation or prom or weddings, all these types of experiences. And so kids can grieve that as well. They can grieve having to move to a new school district and leaving their friends behind, or getting injured and not being able to play in a big championship game. So I wanted to make sure that kids understood that that wasn't just something that we experience when we lose somebody or something.
Yeah, it's about relationship, isn't it? Whether it is with the person, whether it's that experience or these things that you're talking about, it's understanding and breaking that relationship down and making sense out of all of this.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think too, you probably may find with some of these younger kids that you're working with is even vocabulary that you use.
Yes.
And having them understand the words that you're using is different, right?
Yeah, when I'm doing my lessons, so I go in every week, I teach 14 lessons. I have 7 first grade and 7 third grade classes. And so when I'm going through my lesson, there'll be words that come up, and I'll stop and I'll be like, do you guys know what this word means? Like, for example, this past week, my third grade lessons had the word persevere in it, because the lesson was on managing disappointment and how they can handle that. And so some kids did know what it was. Some kids that had came up as a vocabulary word actually in their literacy lessons that they were doing, whereas other ones hadn't gotten to that yet. So making sure that kids understand that the words that I'm using and how they relate to themselves. So you'll typically will give an example. So I'm like, all right, you had to persevere when you were learning to ride a bike. You might have fallen off, but you were able to get back on. You persevered and you kept practicing until you successfully learned to ride a bike.
Right.
And so those types of things are able to help kids understand what the lessons are about.
Really breaking it down.
Exactly.
Yeah, so that it makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. These books are amazing. And you also read them, don't you? You do different places where you do that.
Yep. I've been able to go into, before working as a school counselor, I was able to go into schools and read to students. But I love being able to go to libraries and read to kids there. It's been incredible to be able to go out into the community and share Pearl's message with other kids.
Yeah. Oh, one thing, speaking of libraries, if we're talking about this too, the Pennsylvania School Librarians Association Conference. You are going to be a part of the local author book signing. It's the 50th anniversary this year. That's very cool.
It's so cool. Our school librarian at Schuylkill Valley is on one of the co-chairs for it, and she reached out to me, and I was like, absolutely, that'd be so cool to be able to share my book. I mean, little nerve-wracking because, librarians, they know everything about books, but I'm really excited to be able to get Pearl's message out there for other people to see and hopefully inspire some librarians to have more books related to mental health, because it is a topic that is so important for students to learn about.
It absolutely is. You have a website, don't you? What is that?
Yes, so my website is jennamartorana.com, JennaMartorana.com.
Okay, and we can find you on social media too.
Yes, so my My pageant Instagram is Miss PA Collegiate USA on Instagram, and Miss Pennsylvania Collegiate USA on Facebook. And then my business is Sparkling Designs and Gifts _ in between each word.
Okay.
It's a long one.
Well, we'll be
and they're available on both of those websites.
Okay, that sounds great. But it's all connected. It all
Yes,
makes sense.
everything goes together. Everything is hand in hand.
Yeah, it is. And it's all about your journey. And with, the pageants that you've been a part of, the competitions, it's given you a platform for this. So, you talk about things happening for reasons and purposes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like when I became involved in pageants in 2018, I was just on the beginning of my recovery journey with my mental health and just learning to share my story. And so I think about where I was 6 years ago to where I am today. It's just incredible. And I mean, I think about the fact that I'm celebrating 10 years since I graduated high school and just the difference that 10 years makes. I mean, if you had told 18-year-old Jenna about where I'd be today, I'd be like, no, absolutely not. But here I am working as a school counselor, published 2 children's books, running my own business, and really making a difference in the lives of not only my students, but other children throughout Pennsylvania.
And you absolutely are. And we're going to tell you more about that right after this, so stay with us. You're watching Lancaster Community TV, LCTV 66. Welcome back to Behind the Lines, and we're talking to one of my favorite people, Jenna Martorana. She is an author. She's also a school counselor. We've been talking about her second book as well as her first book that she's written, but this one is Pearl's Person, and this has to do with grief, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
So grief, unfortunately, is something that all kids, adults will experience, but it's not something that's talked about until you usually are experiencing grief.
Right.
And so Pearl's Person was meant to be able to give adults the tools that they needed to talk about grief before a child is experiencing it.
Okay. Would you want to read a couple
Sure.
pages or something from the book?
Yeah. So this is coming from Ms. Hope, the school counselor. It is called grief, and we feel grief for many reasons, like when someone dies, or when we have to move somewhere new, or when we can't do something we love anymore. Sadness, anger, anxiety, and fear are all normal feelings to have when we are grieving. We might have trouble sleeping, paying attention in class, or wanting to spend time by ourselves. And even our bodies can feel not so great. Feelings of grief are like a roller coaster. They go up and down, so some days are easier and some days are harder. There are things we can do, though, to help handle these feelings, she told Pearl.
Yeah. So this is written in a way that it's easy for a younger child to understand, but also if a parent or some other adult was reading this, it's actually for both, isn't it?
Yes.
That way you can really drive the message home. Looking at this book, you are able to share this with the elementary school children that you work with, and it's first and third graders, and you also get to do some social and emotional lessons too. Yeah, I think that's wonderful. So you also have a business. I mean, you are so well-rounded with so many different things that you do.
Lots of different hats.
Yeah, it is. But it's kind of all related too, isn't it? But Sparkling Designs and Gifts, you started in 2017. And I think, your phone case is one of those? Is that right?
Yep, that's one of the things that I make. So all my stuff is, for the most part, geared towards pageant title holders. So whether that be crown boxes, jackets with their titles, phone cases, pretty much anything that they could want personalized with their title, I can do. To be able to create things for girls like Miss America, Miss USA, Miss Teen USA, and to see so many girls wearing my things. And the best part is knowing that they're going to be making such special memories in these items that they can have for years and will look back on and remember all the times that they had with their year of service.
Oh, absolutely. Is this just for those that are in pageants, or do you do things for other people?
So originally I started making stuff for just friends, family, and then baton twirlers, because I am also a twirler.
Ah, yes.
But then when I started getting involved in pageants, my stuff kind of shifted towards more pageant stuff. But I do offer other things, again, for whether that be just stuff that's personalized or shirts, things like that, for twirlers, for other organizations. I'm more than happy to customize anything. So it's really cool when I get to do things that are not quite pageant related, a little bit of a different change of pace.
Right, it is. So we mentioned earlier in the first half, Miss Collegiate Pennsylvania USA. What do you get to do with that?
Yeah, so my personal platform is It's Okay to Not Be Okay, which is where being a school counselor and Pearl and all of that come into play. But then the Miss Collegiate USA's platform is on financial literacy and making college accessible and affordable for students, for girls specifically.
Right.
And so, being someone who is a first generation college student who has gotten her bachelor's and her master's degree, I love to be able to promote Miss Collegiate USA's message, because I understand what it's like being that first person in your family to go through college and a master's program, and how confusing and how that all can be. But then I also know as a school counselor, like with high schoolers figuring out the FAFSA and financial aid and all of that and scholarships. So it's cool to be able to promote an organization that I have a lot of experience in their platform as well.
Yeah. So we can find you almost anywhere. I mean, if we Googled you,
Yeah,
you're
it'll
going to
come
show
up.
up, right?
Oh,
you'll
yeah.
show up. So I know you're busy with, school counseling during the week, but are you still available to go out to do readings and to do things like that as well?
Yeah, my weekends usually are spent doing things as Miss Pennsylvania Collegiate USA or doing things for my business. So I love being able to go out into libraries or other community events and be able to read my book to kids.
Yeah.
And be able to connect with my community.
Yeah. This is empowering, doing what you're doing. I think it's empowering to the people you come in contact with, but I think it's empowering to you too, isn't it?
Yeah.
What have you learned the past few years through this journey, Jenna?
I just think about who I was before I started in pageants, and I've always been somebody that likes to be the center of attention, but I didn't really have the confidence. And so being able to get up in front of people and talk about my experiences living with depression and anxiety and really be able to own my story has been the most empowering part of my life.
Yeah. So since we're talking about depression and mental, health and that sort of thing.
Well, it's just important to really always check in, not only with your friends, but with yourself. We live such fast-paced lives, and it can be easy to overlook how other people are doing or how we're feeling. And so I always urge people to, just check in with your friends. Hey, how are you doing? And really ask them how they're doing. Or to sit with yourself and say, what am I feeling? Because a lot of times our emotional feelings will manifest in physical issues, whether it be like trouble sleeping or loss of weight or weight gain or lack of motivation. And so it's really important to notice those things. And if you notice a change in your friends or your family, ask them. Yeah. Because the worst thing that they can do is say, nope, I'm fine.
We all learn, and I know you have too, things to do, self-care. And I know for myself, sometimes it's just being in a quiet space. Because, like you said, so much.
Yeah. I always stress that self-care is more than just bubble baths and face masks. Self-care is practical. It can be making sure you're getting enough sleep, making sure you're drinking enough water, taking your medicine if you're prescribed it, getting your body moving in a way that you enjoy. It does not have to be this luxurious thing. Self-care is listening to what your body needs to take care of itself.
Yeah. And I know for me too, sometimes it's really connecting with close friends.
Exactly.
And having that time, that one-on-one time or small group time. Things that make you laugh, that lift your spirit.
Yep, exactly.
Going to see a good movie.
Yep.
Something to make you laugh, something with a good ending as well. Yeah.
All of those, being able to connect with people. I think relationships, friendships are such an important part of having that support system to make sure that your mental health is the best that it can be.
Yeah. I'm so glad that you have written these 2 books. And who knows, is there a third on the horizon?
Who knows? Maybe.
Maybe, because it is a journey, and we'll see what's needed too. So if we want to find these and we want to get these, where do we go, Jenna?
Yeah, so Pearl's Person is available on my website. You can head to jennamartorana.com and click the link there, and it'll take you right to both of my children's books.
So you can get both of them there. Yeah. And if we want to reach out to you, we can also find that too.
Yep, you can contact me on my website.
Okay, well that sounds great. Thank you for all the work that you do and the difference that you're making in our community, and the fact that you're reaching out and making a difference in young people's lives. That affects all of us.
And thank you so much for continuing to support my journey and for letting me share Pearl's Person with everyone.
Absolutely, my pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us today, too. I'm Diane Dayton with Behind the Lines, reminding you to look behind the lines. You might be surprised what you find.